All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for attending the ArtsActivate 2023 Round 3 information session. Happy New Year. I'm glad you could all join us. I am Megan Karfa. I'm the Cultural Programs Coordinator. I started back in September, right when Round 2 opened. So I'm excited to move on to Round 3. Got my feet wet for Round 2. And we'll be recording this and putting it up on the website, and we'll have some other information sessions and open office hours, which I'll go through a little bit later. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started. And I'll let everyone in as any stragglers come in as they, I'll hear a ding and I'll let them in. So about the Office of Arts and Culture, it was established by the City Council in 1989, and we work with artists, organizations, businesses, funders, and other partners to serve Dallas residents and visitors. So the core programs are the stewardship of the 19 city-owned cultural venues and $6+ million in cultural support funding, 300+ works in public art, and then WRR as well. So in 2018, the city approved the Dallas Cultural Plan and Policy. So the cultural plan is the guiding document with big picture goals and priorities for the next 7 to 10 years. And the policy was the approved policy guiding OAC's ongoing work. And they were able to engage over 9,000 residents in the year-long process to create the plan and the policy. So what is it? It identifies the top priorities. It asks, what's the cultural potential of Dallas? What issues keep Dallas from reaching its cultural potential? How can these be addressed? And it helps provide a blueprint for the future. So it identifies the top tiered initiatives that Dallas as a whole is poised to launch and bolster, and informs updated cultural policy for the Office of Arts and Culture. So there really were 6 main priorities that came out of the cultural plan. It's equity, diversity, space, support for artists, sustainable arts ecosystem, and communication. And you can see that we are ingraining this into our grant applications, as well as you'll be asked to select at least one of these to talk about with your project. But I'll get into that in just a little bit. So the cultural policy vision is an equitable, diverse, and connected community whose residents and visitors thrive through meaningful arts and cultural experiences in every neighborhood across Dallas. And the mission is to support and grow a sustainable cultural ecosystem that ensures all residents and visitors have opportunities to experience arts and culture throughout the city. So the Office of Arts and Culture works to enhance the, somebody joining right now. The quality of life for all Dallas residents by creating an equitable environment where artists as well as arts and cultural organizations thrive. People of all ages enjoy opportunities for creative expression and all celebrate our multicultural heritage. So cultural equity, as you can tell, is very important to us. So we envision a city of people whose success and well-being are not predetermined by their race, age, disability, sexual orientation, gender, social status, zip code, or citizen status. And we recognize that artistic and cultural expression is fundamental to the development of our identity as individuals and as our community at large. So we assert the right for all people to have access to the arts and cultural experiences throughout Dallas. We also recognize the historic legacies of racism, overt bias, and injustice that shape our present reality. And the Office of Arts and Culture will serve as a convener and connector to catalyze equity in the policies and practices of its partners across the Dallas arts ecosystem. So the reason we're all here tonight is ArtsActivate 2023. It's our project-based cultural funding program, which will provide funding for qualifying arts and cultural projects in the city of Dallas. So it's open to proposals from nonprofit arts and cultural organizations, social service organizations, individual artists, art collectives, and other eligible nonprofit organizations for 2023 fiscal year. You can find all the information at artsactivate.com. And then if you like to use hashtags, you could use those hashtags below, and they're used in the social media posts as well. So again, ArtsActivate is the project-based cultural funding program. It is open for 3 rounds. Today was opening of round 3 of 3. So applicants may apply to any and all rounds. However, individual artists can be funded a maximum of 2 times for 2 separate projects, and the same for nonprofits with a revenue of under $100,000. So again, funded maximum 2 times for 2 separate projects, and nonprofits with a revenue above $100,000 can be funded 1 time. So applicants who are currently funded through our Cultural Organizations Program, or COP, may apply if they receive less than $150,000 in operating or maintenance support, and that the proposed project is not currently a part of their current COP scope of services. So the city, doesn't want to duplicate funding for the same project for essentially in their COP, as well as ArtsActivate. So just something to think about if you are a COP organization. And the program budget for ArtsActivate as a whole is $1 million.
That's great.
So the 2023 goals is to engage with the cultural plan that was created in 2018 to provide public benefit, to increase access and inclusivity, connect individuals from diverse cultures, and invest in historically underserved communities. So some definitions: the project, it's defined as a specific one-time event or a production, such as one concert, theater, exhibit, or a project that includes a series of events using one theme or title. So if you have an overarching theme, you can have a few different series of events underneath it. And art in public places. This is distinct from the Dallas Percent for Art program. Art in public places is defined as permanent or temporary visual art installations supported by grants for installation on privately owned locations that are visible and accessible to the public. So permission from the property owner must be obtained prior to submitting your ArtsActivate application, and projects cannot be installed on any city-owned property. So just if you are planning to do any type of visual art, make sure that's something you're thinking about. Privately owned property, if a person or a company organization owns the property, the applicant again must obtain a formal letter of support allowing the applicant to install the proposed work, and it must be included in the application. So definitions of active versus inactive status applicants. Active are defined as applicants who have been recommended for funding, executed a contract with OAC, and successfully completed the contract through ArtsActivate during or after the 2019-2020 fiscal year, which is October 1st through September 30th, at the time of the application. Inactive status are those who have never received project-based funding from the Office of Arts and Culture. Applicants whose most recent project funding occurred during the prior to the 2018-2019 year, or those who have met either criteria and have not been recommended for project-based funding. So just keep in mind that all this information will be in the portal as well, so you won't need to memorize this. So essentially, if you're currently under contract, active, if you have not been in a number of years, then you would be inactive, or if you're new, you would be inactive. So just a timeline. Today, January 3rd, application opens, and you are all here at the virtual information session. We'll also be hosting a Spanish information session on the 11th from 5:30 to 6:30. And then on the 17th from 5:30 to 6:30, we'll have virtual office hours. You can just pop in, ask questions. We'll be on our Zoom, really just here to answer any questions you may have. You don't have to stay the whole time. Someone else might ask a question that's maybe relevant, but it's really just so you can pop on, ask a question, and we're here. That will also be held on the 25th from 12 to 1 if maybe the lunch hours work better for you. We'll also be holding an in-person office hours on the 26th from 4:30 to 6:30 at the Bathhouse Cultural Center. If you maybe prefer to come in person and ask some questions about your application, we will be available at the Bathhouse. January 30th, the application will close at 11:59 p.m. And then from January 31st through March 2nd will be the review, panel review, admin review, and then we'll submit funding recommendations to the allocations committee. And then March 6th, funding recommendations will be sent to all applicants, either funded or not funded. Everybody will receive a notification. And then April 1st will be the earliest start date for contracts, with September 15th being the last date for contracts. All right, so eligibility requirements. Individual artists must be a resident of the city of Dallas or must maintain a permanent studio or workspace within the city of Dallas. And PO boxes do not apply. And for nonprofit organizations, they must be a 501c3 tax exempt as categorized by the IRS, must be authorized to do business in the state of Texas, and must have an admin office in the city of Dallas, and PO boxes do not apply. So guidelines for ArtsActivate, all projects must take place in the city of Dallas. So this does not include Highland Park, University Park, or Capitol Hill. They must align with at least one of the ArtsActivate goals, must be arts and culture related, have at least one in-person event that serves your intended audience, and cannot start until April 1st. That is the first date for round 3. And must be completed by September 15th. And then exceptions may apply for Hispanic Heritage Month programming. So the maximum funding requests have been increased since last year, since we do have more funds this year, which is wonderful. So individual artists can ask up to $8,000. Group A are nonprofit organizations that are less than $100,000. They can ask a max of $12,000. Groups B and C can ask up to $14,000. Those are organizations between $100,000 to just under $1 million. And then group D, organizations of $1 million or more, can ask up to $16,000. So we do not fund over the max amount. So ask what you need up to this amount. So the process for ArtsActivate is the application, then it will go through staff review, then panel review, then we'll submit our funding recommendations to the allocations committee. Then we will start the contracting process. We will have an entire contracting process orientation if you are selected, because we know that contracting with the city can be a bit cumbersome. So that way everybody knows what's going on. So we will have a whole contracting orientation if you are funded, the project execution, and then the final report. So the application, obviously it will ask basic applicant info, where we can find you, your address, all those things. The first information will be the intent, so the project proposal, where this is where reviewers should find the most compelling information. It should be in the planning stage or completely planned. Really be as descriptive as possible. So try to include location, dates, people involved, who it will impact, ages, how you're going to accomplish it. Even if you don't maybe have all of these decided, put the information of when you plan to have it decided, how you're planning to go about it. Sometimes I think people don't want to pin themselves in, so they don't put the information, but then it sometimes can come across that they don't have it planned. So as much information as possible is always encouraged. Have achievable goals. Right, so anyone can understand. So if you're using acronyms or anything like that, please make sure to spell those out, as panel doesn't always have the same background. So making sure that everyone can understand your application, even if they maybe don't have the same artistic background. And then always spell check. I always love to put my narrative information in a Word doc, make sure it all looks good, and then copy and paste it over. Next will be the impact, so how the project will make an impact. You'll address your cultural plan priorities. You'll discuss your marketing, not huge in depth. There's just one box about marketing of what you plan to do, and your audience diversity. You'll also provide a project budget, supplemental materials, and a quick risk management questionnaire. So for project budget, you want to make sure it reflects the needs of the project and shows good use of city dollars. So make sure to check the project guidelines. Everything can be found at artsactivate.com. To make sure you don't include items that can't be funded by this program. So travel, food, drink, scholarship, etc. Those are all listed in the guidelines. and make sure OAC can only fund projects that happen in Dallas, and make sure you are prepared to for the funding to come in installments. We do fund in 3 installments, so it'll be 25, 50, 25. That last part would be after you've submitted your final report. So for revenues and expenses in your project budget, any proposed project that's showing a surplus of 10% or more, or is showing a deficit, will be subject to disqualification. So ideally, you want your budget to be balanced. The portal will do the math for you, but just make sure you're paying attention to that. So any deficit or any surplus of 10% or more. You can include insurance and permitting costs if that's something you think you might incur. I will say, we'll go kind of through this a little bit later, but if you are funded, we will create a scope of services and send that to the Office of Risk Management. Typically, if you're working with youth or elderly populations, they will ask for insurance. So if that's something you are planning to do, you might want to start to think about including insurance in your budget. And then be sure to show your matching funds. So if anybody's giving you anything in kind, you can count that in your revenues, and then make sure you include your funding request. So you'll also prepare a video submission. So panel reviews will continue to be executed remotely. Our anonymous panelists will have access to everything remote. So they will see a video submission as opposed to doing in-person presentations. So applicants will upload a 5-minute video presentation. We really wanted to address the intention, impact, and overall project. We want to make sure it's talking about your project specifically and not about your organization or you as an artist in general. Make sure it's really honing in on your project's purpose, who's benefiting, and how you will execute it. You'll also provide an events listing. So all project proposals must have at least one in-person event that serves your intended audience. So list any and all dates associated with your project, include addresses and location names if it's in person. And this will be used to determine your neighborhood typology admin score, which I'll go over in just a minute. Choose ideal location with at least a soft confirmation of venue availability. So if a venue has to change, let us know and we'll talk through that. We really want to make sure that you guys go through a good faith effort to find another venue that's in the same typology and serves a similar audience. You'll also submit supplemental materials. So make sure it says uploading the right material to support your project is important. Anything visual is really helpful, especially when maybe the panelists aren't familiar with you as an artist or your organization. Think kind of quality over quantity. They are going to be reviewing a number of applications. So make sure, you don't want to put 20 things in there, just to make sure that, it's really quality that highlights your project, and make sure that materials relate to what you're proposing. So the staff will review and vet applications for compliance. So we'll go through the location and time frame, make sure it's within the ArtsActivate round 3 time frame, make sure that the materials information is complete, the budget's in order, all of that fun stuff. That's my job. And then it will go to the panels. So they will review both your application and your video submission. So again, for video, we're not looking for production value, really just looking for content. Some people are better at explaining their project in person and through a video as opposed to writing it out in a narrative form. So just looking for well thought out responses and wanting to hear your passion and intent about your project. So we will tell our panel, since we've asked for only 5 minutes, that they will stop watching after 5 minutes. So please make sure your video is no longer, and it's not meant to be a sizzle reel about you in general, again, to make sure it's highlighting your project specifically. So we'll go through real quick how scoring works. So you will have 100 total points. The admin scoring will be 30 points, and then the panel score will be 70. So the first is for only individual artists. You will you'll get 5 points for date and venue confirmation. And then for organizations, you will do a board and staff diversity. So that will kind of differ between organizations and individuals, but then for everybody, application and contract compliance. So this is where your inactive versus active status comes into play. So if you are an inactive status applicant, you will have to complete an assessment. The link is on the portal. It'll give you all the information there. Just complete it with 100% accuracy. You can take it as many times as you need until you get 100% accuracy. If you're an active status, we'll look at your funded project contract and see if things have been submitted on time, all that fun stuff. So you can get those 5 points for your previous contract compliance. Then there will be project budget support. So it shows percentage of financial support in total for your proposed project in comparison to the requested amount for OAC. So it differs a little bit between individual artists and organizations, and it breaks down as such here. And then there will be the neighborhood typographies. This will be 10 points. So this will be your events listing, and we put it into, there's a link also on artsactivate.com that is an interactive map with this. So you can put in the address and see where your events fall in the different typologies. So events that are held in the green spaces are non-traditional, they'll get 10 points. Those that are in pink will get 7, those are residential arts. Those in blue will get 5 points, those are mixed urbanism in any of our cultural centers. And then the yellow section is the urban core, which will receive 0 points because we're trying to make sure that the arts are getting spread out through all of Dallas. And again, all project proposals must have at least one in-person event that serves your intended audience. And then you'll talk about your cultural plan priorities. Again, you have to address at least one in your applications with supporting information justifying which initiatives under the selected priorities are being met. So you can get 5 points for clearly supporting your selected priority, 3 for somewhat supporting, and 0 for not really giving a lot of information on how you're supporting that priority. So just then it will be intention. So this will, oh, so sorry. This is the panel scoring. Actually, I had some, okay, we're going to go through the cultural plan priorities first. So this is one for Pleasant Grove spoken word workshop series. So an artist would like to present a free workshop series at Pleasant Grove Library. This workshop series would teach about writing and spoken word to help local residents express themselves and find stronger sense of identity and pride in their neighborhood. The workshop series ends with a public performance of the works created by participants in Pleasant Grove. So they have selected equity as their cultural plan priority. And then here are some examples of maybe what somewhat supports, does not support, and clearly supports. These will also be done by anonymous panelists as well. And it is an average of how these points lay out. Just an example for you guys, but let me go back to panel scoring. So panel scoring again will be 70 points of your 100 total. So intention will be 20. So really, what is the project's purpose? You know, does the project create and provide unique and engaging artistic and cultural services? This will be the anonymous panel will read your application and make this decision on how many points to award. They'll also look at impact, which will be 35 points. So who is benefiting from this project? They're really going to look at, you know, if the project is eliminating barriers, increasing equitable access and inclusivity through direct community and neighborhood activation. And finally, just overall is 15 points. So how well did you execute? Does it seem like you'll execute your project? The overall evaluation of your project plan. So after that is said and done, and you have potentially been awarded, you will enter into the contracting phase with the City of Dallas. If you are new to contracting, there are a few steps to get there. Again, we'll hold a contracting orientation to have all this information for you, but just really quickly, you will have to register as a vendor with the city. A scope of work will be submitted. We'll pull that information from your application and send it to you to approve. Once that's done, we will submit it to the Office of Risk Management, where they will decide if any additional insurance is needed. We're going to scoot over to the right side real quick about insurance and risk management. Again, insurance is often required when working with students or seniors, working with anything that could cause injury or harm. So any large machines, anything like that. So some type of coverage is required if you are working with those demographics. Potential background checks, the Office of Risk Management will decide if that's needed, if you'll need to provide a certificate of insurance. And again, you can include this in your budget and project execution timelines. So back over to the left side, once insurance is complete, then we will route your contract. It does have to be signed by you as the artist. It'll also go through the city manager and the city attorney. It'll all be electronic through Adobe Sign. And then you will need to make sure you have any permits that are needed, that it will be your responsibility if you're doing anything that needs a permit. And then we'll go through deliverables to then get your payments. And again, your contract must be executed before services and events begin. So your contract executed means your scope is approved, your insurance is obtained and in compliance, and all signatures are on the contract. So invoicing and payments, once your contracts are executed, you can become eligible to receive your payments. The city operates on a net 30, which means that it could take up to 30 days for your invoice to pay out. We do allow EFT payments, so I would highly encourage that because it does expedite the process a bit, so you don't have to wait for a mailed check. Invoices are submitted for services rendered and cannot be paid in advance of services. So again, they will be paid out in 3 installments. So based on your scope of services, you'll need to provide verification and completion of certain deliverables before invoices can be submitted for payment. So we usually do that by once you're selected, you will do a revised budget, then you will do a marketing plan, and then your final report. And then as a means of checks and balances, submitted invoices must be reconciled, reviewed, and approved before submitted for payment. So it does go through a few of us in the OAC staff. So we try to get those done as quickly as possible, but just so you guys know, it does go through a number of people since it has to go through the city. And then finally, the final report. Every funded project must complete a final report as part of their contract. So this will be an event summary if any services were not provided, events and attendance, and demographics. So that is pretty much it. I'll come back for, somebody just joined right at the end. I'll come back for some questions, but just as a reminder, we will be having our virtual Spanish information session on January 11th, virtual office hours on the 17th in the evening and the 25th in the afternoon, if that fits your time frame better, and in-person office hours at the Bath Health Cultural Center on the 26th. I will be updating the website if we have any additional in-person office hours. We're working with some of the cultural centers to get around the city. So if those come about, I will be updating the website. So make sure to keep an eye on artsactivate.com. That will also have all the links for all the virtual info sessions. But I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing and open the floor up for any questions.
Hi, thank you. I had a question about just, I guess, in regards as a fine artist myself.
Oh, you muted yourself.
I'm just wondering what the benefit of the projects could possibly be for an individual artist that's like, does all, or let me rephrase my question. Is all the funding that has to go through the OAC specifically for materials only? Because I'm just wondering about like time spent on production and things like that for myself if I'm doing an individual artist.
Sure. Yeah, it does not have to be just on materials. It can be to, contract artists, other things. There is a list in the guidelines of things that are not funded. So just make sure to keep an eye on that, like travel and things like that. But it does not have to just be supplies.
Okay, cool.
Alex,
you.
of course, I see you raised your hand.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, cool. So I'm actually here representing two organizations, so I got questions for both.
Okay.
For one, I know that our planned project is going to be a kind of summer a summer workshop for students to be able to have, we're trying to lower the cost of access to dance training. And so I don't know that the powers that be have given much thought to the area that it's going to be in. It's not, I know that it's not exactly in Highland Park, but it's on Mockingbird. So
Okay.
but I'm just wondering how because the whole objective is for the cost to be eliminated if possible, or at the very least driven down so much that more people have the opportunity to participate.
Sure.
And so, do you have anything to worry about there? Do I need to go, ring the alarm or?
I would say double check on the web on artsactivate.com. There is under guidelines and resources, there's one, it's the Dallas Cultural Plan typology map. You can put the exact address in there. If it'll tell you where it falls. If it is in one of those areas, it cannot be funded. But so I would say double check your location first. If it looks like it's not going to fall within the city limits, then I would say probably time to talk with them about the location.
Okay, sounds good. And then for the other organization, I saw in the guidelines there was a bit about material variances, and as far as status as a Dallas-based organization or artist.
Mm-hmm.
So the other organization, because of the nature of how one has to go about establishing a dance company, typically most artists have to use their home address as their registered address with the IRS and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
However, that being said, most of her season and work for the coming year is planned to occur in Dallas, within Dallas, for Dallas. And so I guess she's worried about us going through the effort to complete the application and it not being considered because of her address, because that's something that's kind of out of her control right now.
Okay. If you want, go ahead and send me an email with her information, and I can get in touch individually, and we can make sure to talk about that and make sure everything's good to go, so I can get a clear idea. So just send me an email. I'll put it in the chat should you not have it.
Sounds good.
Okay. And I saw in the chat. All right. Any other questions from those of you that are still here? If not, I'll go ahead and so sorry for the person that just joined. We are recording, so that, again, this recording will be put on the website along with all of the slides. But should you have any questions, you can contact me again. I will share my screen just one more time. You can contact me You can contact OAC funding programs at Dallas City Hall. That's just one that all of us on the funding team will monitor just to make sure it gets to somebody. You can always contact Anne Marie Gann, who's our interim assistant director, Jasmine Beckham, who is my counterpart, cultural programs coordinator, myself, and then we have a few that are Spanish speaking. If you need any help with that, just send me an email and I will send you their way. But if you have any questions, don't hesitate to let me know. And I am excited to read all of your proposals and let me know if you need anything.
I have a quick question.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah, my name is Mafor from Siren Protectors of the Rainforest. Can you elaborate more on the diversity component?
Sure. Diversity in terms of your proposed
No, in
your intended
terms of
audience.
management and board.
Okay, so let me go back to that slide. One second. One second. So this will be only for the organizations, not for any individual artists. So based on your tier, so if you are under $100,000 revenue, you will be tier 1. It is broken down in the guidelines. So based on your tier, you will get this many points, or you get 2.5% or 2.5 points for however percent of your board is your diversity, 0 if it's less than the amount listed. The same with your staff. So we don't have staff diversity for tiers 1 and 2 just due to the size. We know some of those smaller organizations only have maybe 1 person working, so that's really more for the larger organizations. So you'll essentially get 2.5 points for either your percentage or 0 points if you have less than that.
I'm sorry, I still don't understand. What does 10% stand for?
So
10%.
it's for the diversity of your board. So let me double check the exact. So it's per the Dallas cultural policy that was put in place. So it's to demonstrate the diverse community representation. So it essentially will be the percentage of non-majority members to the board or staff. So for example, if the goal is at least 10% diversity on the board, an organization meeting that goal must have no more than 90% of one race or ethnicity on their board.
Okay. And is there like, okay, because we have and we've been having this conversation with our board lately. We have like a mix of Hispanics and people of African descent.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, although they all identify as people of African descent, some of them have like niches like, okay, I'm also Native.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I also Caucasian. You understand what I'm saying?
Sure.
So I'm trying to figure out how that's going to be calculated.
So I do believe, let me pull it up real quick, that there is an option for multi that you can use as well if they don't fall into just one. Let me double check that. So sorry, just one second. Yep, so there is an option for multiracial that you can use as well.
Okay, and that is factored into the 10%?
Correct. So again, it's just having to make sure that no more than 90% is of any one race or ethnicity.
Okay, okay.
Any other questions? If not, I'll go ahead and end this. And again, I'll put the recording on the website along with all of the slides. But let me know if you have any questions between now and the 30th. Thank you all so much for attending.